In general, I'm kind of obsessed with liminal space, in between spaces. With the rooftop that I'm sitting on, for example, I see it as between the air and the earth, between safety and danger. I relate these in-between spaces to stories, legends that are passed down through generations. I'm also thinking about the personas that come from the oral histories. The idea that my grandfather and great-grandfather constructed a persona based on probably survival for their generation, and how I relate to that by choice. I'm really interested in that slippage, that interpretation, unpacking that power and unpacking those legends. I've done a lot of these big public participatory sculptures and a lot of ephemeral work. Given this idyllic studio setting, I wanted to explore my drawing practice and smaller sized sculptures, focusing still on that liminal space, the idea of power and the form of the rooftop. Thinking about the trope of the magical Negro character in film and literature, that black character that exists pretty much solely to guide the white protagonist to the end of the story. Seeing what those characters could be if we looked at their three-dimensional lives. People like Grace Jones or Paul Robeson or Prince have come up in the two-dimensional work as concepts behind things like the rooftop.
I do public art, large-scale sculptural installations, and I explore the loss of control. The Charlotte Symphony has a night that they invite artists to collaborate in their performances. What I wanted to do was really get involved with the performance itself and do something that actually captures the specific moment at the time. I did visual compositions that were related to the sound compositions, and those were exposed through the entire process. So, for instance, the conductor would start the composition, and then taking what would be considered as a real-time sort of three-dimensional tracking of his movements. The art that I did in response start to get revealed piece by piece. Essentially, none of it was under my control, right? Like, it was set up to be somebody else composing, right? And somebody else conducting and somebody else directing everything that happens. And I've done work in the past that employs that same vehicle where it's more about the circulation through the space and the people that inhabit the building and less about the art that I made. You know, so it's a direct reflection of what happens inside of a space.
I use a variety of media. Whatever the concept of the work is determines what the material will be. I'm interested in how man-made objects become meaningful through their ownership. Although a lot of the work that I've been doing lately is directly related to natural disasters. What happens when a tornado, for instance, comes through a town and picks up all those people's possessions and dumps them into the street. In particular, some things that I've been doing here at the center have related to recycling. Like this recent piece I did is called 3 Months Consumption. It's all of the things that I have purchased and consumed since I came to the residency. So I like using my personal experience and collecting and then transforming that somehow aesthetically into a piece. When the objects are formed into these circular, typically sculptures, but sometimes they're drawings, they often become referential of landfills. So this idea of consumption is moving from material goods that are precious to us to this larger concept of overconsumption.
consider myself to be a mixed media sculptor, blacksmith and welding, crocheting, some digital work. Man, just anything I get my hands on. I love creating, I'm a maker. The themes of my artwork stem from anywhere from capitalism, consumerism, and brainwash. From music to products that are being sold to commercials, there's always these different influences to want to buy these certain materialistic things. The media makes pawns out of people. In history, they stopped people from playing music because they thought that it was about an uprising or a revolt. And now they're promoting all this music that doesn't really mean anything to brainwash our youth about, this nonsense. People stand in lines for hours on end just to buy a certain type of shoe. We're just showing off what we got and not trying to build any revenues for ourselves or for your kids later on down the line. So it's just a thing that I want people to wake up to. Like, this stuff doesn't really mean anything. Yes, I have these shoes. Yes, I'm wearing these type of clothes and I'm showing off what I have. Like, okay, what else is there to show? I want my artwork to be something what kids can look up to, or people in general can look up to. Because there are not really many role models out here that are doing positive things, so I want my artwork to be the positive thing.
We're at the tail end of winning the Macola Award for the Arts and Science Council. And what we did here at the Macola Center was a creation process for what ended up being the Nouveau Sud project premiere, which was a show using contemporary circus, both in philosophy and practice, to tell the stories of underrepresented communities here in Charlotte, what it is to live here, what it is to be citizens of in a town that we call, or we see, that is culturally segregated, yet it's just very diverse. I went to different communities, and including the breakdancing community, the Mexican community, the folkloric dancers, and so on. So it kind of forced the project in a casual conversation to have those things talked about. So we understand that those things exist, and we use the physical language to express and tell these stories. In our case, we use a hyperphysicality, or the world of circus. Nouveau Sud means New South in French. It is a play on words. Contemporary circus was known as Nouveau Cirque. It started in France in the 70s and it moved on. But since I moved to Charlotte, everybody's been talking about the New South idea. So my thought was, like, we're gonna use circus to do what people think the New South is, which is a more inclusive, more equitable place, right? Perhaps the strongest part of this kind of work, non-verbal communication, raw but very powerful and sincere art form, and basically rooted in trying to answer some social issues that are part of all these members in these communities.